Good morning everyone, welcome back to my channel. Now first of all, let's recap on the first block that we did for the Vintage Blend Studios collaboration, which explores vintage sewing techniques. So the task was a center of your quilt if you were making a quilt, or if you're making a journal like myself, it was all about a title page. So I've completed it, and I ended up focusing on the Tim Holtz fabrics, as you would know by now if you've watched video 1 and 2. Kantha stitched one piece down as my background because there was enough happening in it that I loved, like this lady and the text and some stripes and things, and it was really the colour palette that set me away. So that got stitched down with Kantha quilt style stitching, or Boro stitching if you're interested in the Japanese version of just running stitch. So then I started highlighting it with snippets of bits and pieces. Now Susanna in her project had a hexagon. I think I've got this is the piece that was on the pack. I've actually just taped it to the inside of my lid so that I know that this box is all about this particular project. So the hexagon appeared, and then she had a needle, and there was this running stitch. So I've taken elements from that as inspiration. The only thing I didn't end up doing was some buttons. I sort of felt like my piece had enough interest in it, but I'm sure buttons will appear somewhere in the future. So in the end, once I got it Kantha stitched down, the background piece, I then found my flowers, created some hexagons, created the words to announce the project that is within the book. And then the needle, I was sure I had a needle charm, but for the life of me, I could not find it. But I found some scissors, and I think the needle was silver anyway. So the little brassy coloured scissors worked really well. I'm going to zoom in now just to give you a bit of a rundown on the detail of the piece. So the rose, I ended up stitching with random stitches all over it in some key spots. So I did the leaves, just some strokes, and then some French knots in the center. See that dark chocolate thread? That was a bright pink in the pattern of the fabric. So I just went through with the chocolate and outlined over it to knock back that bright pink. And the flower was very pink in the center. So by putting those French knots and some random stitches over the bright pink, it toned it better with the Tim Holtz fabric that's in behind. Once I had finished embellishing my rose, I then started laying down some additional pieces of lace. So there's actually 4 layers to the project. There is the Tim Holtz fabric in behind. There is then the hexagons, then the rose, and then I went through and added lace. So that's sort of how I built up my layers, like just little itty bitty bits of lace just there. There's another one there. So you could just keep going, but you sort of get to the point where you might lose the integrity of your overall design. So you've got to be a little bit careful. I then stitched it into my journal, which was prepared in a earlier video series. Let me come out a little bit more, guys. Earlier video series where I focused on Tim Holtz papers and fabrics and made some bits and pieces to do with the whole Tim Holtz design. As I laid it down on my page, I had this extra space, which I knew I did because I didn't make the page as big as it could have been. This is just the backing that attaches to my piece. So when I created the journal, I'll just recap briefly here, but go and see that series if you want to see how I put this one together. That's just one piece of calico or muslin. I then created a second piece, the same size. That's it there. Laid them on top of each other, found the middle, and then stitched them with a pamphlet stitch into a soft spine. Now I've got quite a gap between them, so that should allow me to get quite chunky, especially if you do ribbon embroidery and things. You might need this width as it chunks up. Now I could remove this one, bring it over, and then I would probably get a 4th one in, which we might do. but we'll see how we go. I have plenty of pages here because each signature, which is 2 pieces of calico sitting on top of each other, will hold 4 embroideries. Number 1 is in position, number 2, number 3, number 4. So, and I've got another 4 and another 4, and I could even add another 4. Having said that, depending on how thick everything gets, I've already got the spine allocated in space. It is pretty big and there's a lot of gaps there, so we have wriggle room. So if Susanna decides to do this project again for the second half of the year, or maybe next year, I can come back to this journal and just keep adding in pages. So I'm really happy with the space I have to expand as this grows, and it's all about vintage sewing techniques. So when I placed this panel down, that's its original size. I had a little bit of space, so I ended up laying another piece of calico, it's only about that wide, in here so that I got that rough edge look. Then I added this colour palette. Now this is what the designers, when they print the fabric for Tim Holtz, use to colour check everything. And it's a beauty. It's, yeah, gorgeous. 16, 17, 18 colours we used to print this particular panel of fabric. If you're tuning in for the first time, the panel of fabric, have I got it in my box that has been dedicated to this? No, I don't. So I'm just going to grab it. That's the panel of fabric. That there. So it's gorgeous. Absolutely gorgeous. The name of it's in the description below. I love the soft pinks. I love this lady. It's just very pretty. So I've been hoarding it and I've decided it's going to be the whole base for this particular project. So I'll stay within the colour wave, and there's my panel of colours to sort of keep us focused. We are drifting a little bit here, but by using some of these pinks, I've toned down this flower, which was quite bright pink, so that it blends a little bit better. So I've got my hexagons, I've got my title, I've got a sewing tool, not a needle, but pretty close. And I had to play with hexagons too, just did some different stitching. Did some mark making, just some random strokes. So that's my piece and it's stitched in, ready for the next one. Okay, block number 2 is cross stitch. So let me just square myself up here. I feel like I'm all out of plumb. Now, Susanna's prompt, where is the prompts? What have I done with it? There it is a little heart cross stitch, which we will be stitching. Now, go over to Susanna's channel if you've just found me and what I'm doing here, and have a look at her series. Look for the second video, which talks all about cross stitch. Instructions are available on her Etsy store, and you will have a little pattern. Where is she? There she is, a little heart to have a play with. Now, Susanna's done 4 hearts to create like a grid looking system, which is gorgeous. So I'm going to have a think about my little heart and work out what I'm going to do. And the other thing I want to do is I really want to work birds into this piece, because when I created the journal, this fabric of Tim Holtz was my feature. And at the time I said this book would be great to have a series of birds through it. So not every page is going to have a bird, but there's certainly going to be that theme of birds through the project. Okay, so gorgeous colours on those birds, just looking at them. Got our little heart. So now when it comes to the pattern for the birds, in another series, also linked below, is where I play with a journal kits that I purchased on Etsy from Paper Daisy Journals. So Kylie is an Aussie lady and she's got the gorgeous kits. And I fell in love with this one because it's got these little cross-stitch birds on it. Now, Kylie was telling me that she purchased the original embroideries from a lady in the UK who was destashing her mother's craft room. I think Mum has passed. I'm not 100% sure. Yeah, I think that was the story. And Kylie wanted to know if these were a pattern, because Kylie has scanned them and included them in her digital kits. And they're just gorgeous. So what I did in my series is to bring sewing into papercraft, I reproduced some of these little birds. And what I did is just enlarge them and counted the threads and try to match similar colours and created the birds again. Now, if you want to use little birds, head over to Collie's store and you'll find this kit, and then you've got yourself a nice little bird cross stitch. Now these cross stitches just would be handy to have in your stash if you do a few of them, and you can just include them into journals as features or pockets or tucks. Like, they are a lot of fun. So that's the story of the birds. Now my plan was to do these again. Then I started looking through my books. Now you can tell I haven't done cross stitch for a while. The book is like 30 years plus old and the pages are starting to yellow. I've never ever done a pattern out of this. There's a whole series of these. I think I had about 6 of them sitting there, and there's roses, flowers, wildflowers, borders, all sorts of stuff. Lo and behold, birds and butterflies. These little guys caught my eye. So I'm thinking to use these little fellows as my patterns. So this time, instead of having to guess the threads and the layout and how it colour changes by looking at Kylie's images, which is not too hard to do. If you enlarge it, you could sort of work it out, which is a lot of fun in itself. I thought I might have a play with an actual pattern. So the plan is to interpret these into colours and threads that suit my colour palette, this and that. So we need to rework all of the colours that are allocated. So what I'm going to do with you is we're going to have a go at doing that. Now I have some options for Aida cloth, which is what cross stitches predominantly worked on. I've got some of the traditional stuff which has got a bit of starchiness to it. I do have a cream version of it, but this little scrap was sitting there, so I grabbed that out. And I also have this Aida cloth. Now this was going to be a baby blanket, and I did Peter Rabbits on it, and I've got the worked piece here. So that's Peter Rabbit stitched on that particular cloth. And I was just wanting to have a look at it to see how many threads I used. I'm going to say 2, maybe 3. So I was really happy with the way that came together, the detailness of it, but whether my eyes can handle it, because they ain't what they used to be. So I have a piece of this cloth, a couple scraps of it, and the Aida, and then I grab some calico out, because if I decide to do the Aida cloth, it's not big enough for my hoop. So I may need to tack that on and then put it in the hoop to get, you know, the fabric to sit right. A hoop is highly recommended with cross stitch. You don't have to use it because, you know, you don't have to do anything really, but it does keep your work taut. And cross stitch is a bit that way, that you do need that tautness. So I've grabbed out a hoop, so I'll just set that up. Then we'll have a play with our colours and see how we're going to work this little bird. I'd like to do it on this particular cloth because A, I've got the scraps, and B, it's a nice colour. That other one's probably a little bit... I'm going to reinforce this. Undo tight little thing. What I mean by that is I'm going to lay, oh come on, I'm going to lay this piece of calico down first, and then do that, and I think that will support my work better. Yeah, it will. I just need to loosen that off. And I did want my bird to be closer to that one edge. Still needs loosening off. Might be too thick. Oh no, we'll get it. There we go. That's just to keep it nice and taut. All right, so let's get that all out of the way. Now, as you know, with cross stitch, you need to find the center of your designs. So I've gone ahead and actually photocopied a couple birds that are from this big piece, which are a copy of these little guys. That there. And there's the actual piece with a lot of yellow and blue on them. So I've photocopied this fellow and this fellow, and I've enlarged it an extra 41%. So now my eyes can cope with looking at all of these little shapes. What we do need to do is work out what colour we're going to use for the birds that suits our work, our project. So let me just clear my desk a little bit. And the little heart, what I'm thinking is the little heart will be worked in somehow as maybe foliage, or maybe the little heart will be done on separate little pieces that will be stitched in to build the background. Not sure yet. So that's also on the ideas list. So we've got our bird. We're going to work with this little guy first. We've drawn a red line through the design because that finds the middle, and I will do the same on my fabric with needle and thread. Might as well do that now. And that will get us sort of positioned. So let's get our cross section done. It's tricky because I've actually got to take my glasses off to really see where we're at. So bear with me. Now I can't see anything in the room, but I can see. So I'm just going to do a couple rough tacking stitches up here, and that will just anchor my red thread. Then I'm going to pick a line. And work my way down so that I've got a guide of where my center is to my design, which I've done on the actual pattern itself. So this is sort of a good way to get yourself started. The next thing we'll need to do is decide what fabric is going to be the panel of which all of this will end up being stitched onto to go into the journal. So we need to pick a background fabric. Once we nut that out, I will know what colour bird we need to make. Do we blend him to it? Do we make him pop and he's just random colours? That's the next decision once we get our background sorted. So I'll just get this red line in. We'll just do some random stitches there to hold that. That will be removed once we've, what have I got written there? Pineapple. Oh, it's a scrap from a previous project. So let's find our center. And because I want the little bird to be up in this top corner, because I'd love to take advantage of this decorative edge. Not too worried about what happens here. Maybe that's where the hearts come in. Don't know at this stage. But if you've never done cross stitch before, the hearts are a really good way of starting. And then you might feel like you've got your head around the hearts and the basics of cross stitch. And then you might find an image, a cross stitch pattern that you can have a play with. But my recommendation is don't chew off more than you're ready to, like a massive image, because you'll get sick of it potentially and you'll just never finish it. So keep it just to some little projects so you get the feel for the art, and then go from there. it's not something I'm going to revisit in a massive way because my eyesight's just, yeah, not like it used to be. So why put my eyes under pressure? But for a quick little project, why not have a little play? Now, the main reason I'm putting this calico behind this piece is because it's so soft and mushy, this fabric. It's just going to help stabilize it all, and my stitches will look a little better. They won't be so sloppy because the fabric's moving. So I'm just ending that off there. Okay, so we've got our grid system in place there, and we've also got it on the pattern. So what's the next thing to do? We probably should have a think about the background. Let's get this out of the way and bring the box of fabrics in. Now, I guess we need it to blend a little with the cream, so let's just pop the cream there and have a little look through my scraps. No, they're too, like it would work, but no. I've got a flower here on this piece of fabric that I'd pulled out. Don't mind that. It's possible. I might save that for another project. I don't want to do tons. I've got this piece of kantha quilt, which sort of drifts between so many colours, so there's lots of opportunities here. I'm wondering, this here I sort of like the look of. See how there was once a floral fabric here? I'll bring it up to the camera, but it's just slowly broken down. There's like little bits of it still. I'm wondering if I could work the birds into that. I do like that idea. And if I pick up these colours, these blues and turquoises in the bird, it'll help blend it together. I do like that idea, so I'm going to fold that down. I won't cut it yet because I don't know if it'll be one piece or bits of pieces. This stripe too. Yeah, I like the stripe to join because this is quite a fresh colour. This is quite muted, and my embroidery is on a fresh colour as well. So I think this will sort of help the thing come together. So let's put everything away except for that piece of kantha quilt, because the next thing we're going to do, let's get this tidied up here, is we're going to work out, oh, there's more scraps. Hang on, let's get this in here. I've used Susanna's first piece, that block 1, and I've just attached it to the inside of my case. So, and when I pick it up, I know what this project's all about. So that's the theory behind the organisating. That's not even a word, but anyway, I feel organised. So I've enlarged my bird. So I've got our pattern. What we need to do now, this is a scrap bit of paper, I can write it on there, is we need to work out what they use to create the bird in the way of stitches. So I might zoom in just a little bit. So I'm going to start at the top of his head, and we'll just write down what we see. There's a box with 2 strokes in it, so that's a colour. There's a box that has got a dot in it. There's a cotton colour that is a coloured in square. There's a box that has 4 dots. There's a box with an X. There's a box with a V. And there's a box that is open square. That looks like it's part of the branch. Then down here, these blossoms, there's a circle and an arrow down. So the blossoms, we might hold off on picking them yet until we sort of get to the end, because that might be where we work the heart into it and those sorts of colours. The square is the branch. So where's my cottons? Probably can't see everything on shot here, but we'll give it a go. So let's start with the easy ones, and we'll make the branch just a common brown that I often use for twigs. And we'll write next to that 3031. Okay, so he's a definite. That was easy. Let's start at the head of the bird. Now if we flip back to the original and we have a look at the bird, let me zoom in. There's a feature colour, 3 stitches going across the top of his head, and then it pops up again down his wing. So, and it's a fairly dark blue, so we might follow that vein. Now here's our colours. So let's have a look through the turquoisey sorts of tones. I just can't get everything into shot, guys. Sorry about that. But I'm thinking about that one as the top of his head, and then down to his back, which was the 2 little lines. So 3, 7, 6, 8. Now I don't know if that's DMC or Anchor or Semco or who knows, but I'm going to write the colour down. That way I know what it is. Now white. I'm going to do white around his little face, just so that it really defines that face and it helps bring light into your little bird. So let's do white. And then there's a little bit on his wing. Okay, the next is a box. So it's either side of the white. So they've done, actually looks like the colour that's used for his eye and his beak. Now I'm going to guess that it's black. Yes, they've used black. So we'll follow suit. Sorry, where's my black? So we've got black for around his face plus his beak and things like that. Now the next colour is the dot. So this is his chest. He's got yellow there, and then there's a second colour. If you can see, there's a darker goldy yellow there. So it's the shadow under his tummy. That makes him look like he's got a rounded belly. So we need 2 colours. We need his chest and we need a shadow. So we got a couple options. We could do maybe those 2. But the only comment I'd make is our fabric is that colour. So it might be too blendy. And then that would be his tummy. But being that that's in there, it could help it be seen. But these stitches do go straight to this background. So, look, I'll pull them out. But I think it might blend a bit too much. And we might need to look at maybe doing a grey or something. What's this colour here? I like that. So it's a silvery colour, and then if we did a darker, dirtier grey, maybe a bit darker. I know when I reproduce the birds in that cross stitch that was connected to the kit, yeah, I like that. I think I tended to make the colours too similar, so it got a little bit muddy on a wing of that bird in that other artwork. Where is it? This here. My colours were too similar through here. There was a dark grey, a dark blue, and then a slightly mid blue, and I couldn't distinguish the difference. And even his shoulder wasn't enough. Then I was back into those grey blues again. So if I learned anything, it was to make colours really distinctively different. So I'm thinking that this will be his tummy. So that's the top of his head. That's his tummy. Now the next colour we need, did I write them down? So the V will be 6, 4, 6, and the tummies, the dots, will be 3, 0, 2, 4. And look, at the end of the day, nothing's set in stone. We can always adjust it, but at least we're getting a bit of a start. I just don't think that will be where I'll head with it, but I'll keep them out just in case that doesn't look right. So what do we got left? An X. Okay, so that's a colour that just pops on the back of his shoulder. So let's just turn that page, have a look at what they did. Okay, so they've used a green. You probably can't see it there. There's blue, green, and the white all in that. Let me zoom in. So this is a classic of you really need to watch your colours. See the blue, the green, and the white? So we need a colour that's in the family of the turquoise, but it's going to pop a little bit. So I might look at, let me come out a little bit. So it's going to sit on this. So maybe we go a little bit lighter and bring this green in, a greeny turquoisey colour. We'll give it a go. So that one is 502. All right, I think we're there. That's our little bird, his main feathers. That's his tummy. He's going to have a bit of white and then a little black to make him pop. And if I don't like how that's colour combinations coming together as a backup, we've got those as his tummy. All right, let's put our threads away. I think we've got a plan. Let's get rid of the book because we've got a photocopy of it now. So if it gets tatty, oh, there's the brown branch as well. So as for the little heart that Susanna provides as a block, let's have a quick look at that. Now, I'm thinking we use him as the blossoms, but we might need to knock it down in size, but we'll get to that when we get to it. And as for what colour, who knows? But that'll happen. All right, we're halfway into this video already and I've barely done a thing. I think my colours are going to be great. Worst case, we could probably drift into something else there. So you see those pinks and yellows? We could even pick them up in the flowers around the bird, the little hearts, but we'll see. All right, let's get started. Let's test Corrine's eyesight. Now, technically, you should start in the middle and radiate out to make it, you know, simple on yourself. But I really want to get the top of this bird sorted to make sure that my main colours are going to work for me. So I'm going to aim for those 3 stitches at the very top, which is the equal sign, which is this one. So let's get this out. And I think I'll use 3 strands because I want a good pop of colour and I don't want to see the fabric behind. So I'm going to use 3 strands. If it doesn't look right, we can always pull it out. And what have I got here? 3, I got 4. So let's get rid of one of those. And we'll get started. So what are we at? 33 minutes. So that's a bit of time to have a play. Then I'll go away and stitch my little bird. And the next video will be piecing it together into a slow stitch panel for my journal. There's plenty of work on this project. Get rid of the glasses so I can really see. So we're going to come up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and on the 8th row, but 1 row in, we're going to have 3 stitches. I might need to mark this because I can see it going pear-shaped. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then in we come. I'm going to just make that a little red there so I know where to aim. And we've got a knot. And we're going to come up I might need to change my needle too and get a blunter needle because I'm piercing the integrity of the fabric with this sharp one. But for now, we'll carry on. So I've gone up to the 8th row and I've jumped across one row to put in a stroke. And that's my first 3 stitches for the top of the little bird's head. So I'm going to complete those stitches now by making them the full X. Am I on camera? Let me put my glasses back on. Get me to lean more into it. Now I've lost my thread. Wasting time, rethreading. Get rid of the glasses. Okay, so I had one more stroke to do. So if you did fall in love with cross stitch, just give yourself a chance to do a few small projects, because if you jump into some of those big cross stitch charts with thousands of stitches, you might find yourself getting a little overwhelmed with the whole project and becomes an unfinished job. So I'm aiming for these now. We've done those 3 across the top. There's some more down here. So it's on the right side of the red line, not in the corner, but up is a stitch. And I'm just going to do the first stroke. And then I'll come across to its little mate. There's a second one. And then I drop down a line. And there's 3 under that. Oh goodness me, cross stitch. Can assure you I won't be doing a big project. These little birds are enough. I'm pleased I'm doing little birds again. I really enjoyed doing those ones in that series, focusing on a kit that I purchased from Paper Daisy Journals, because they were a really nice touch to my project. So now I'm down on the baseline of the red, and I'm coming across 2 and then putting a little X in. Coming across 2. Now I'm going to mark out every stitch just with the one stroke and then come back and complete them. And then I know that if there's an error, I'm not unpicking much at all, because we're you know, mapping it out. So now I'm on the baseline and there's 3 little crosses. Directly below is the first one, directly below. So I can do him. I can do him. And I can do him. But this is a good example of, if you find a pattern that there's something in it that catches your eye but you don't like the whole pattern, but this is a sampler of birds, you can just do that one little element. And then if there's another piece that you love from another pattern, like Susanna's little heart, well, we can have a go at working the 2 together to create a unique piece. So we got 3 down, which we've done. And then I'm going to go down another row but come across and do 2. Down another row and do 2. But they are one over. You can then come and mark your pattern with a fluoro pen or something to show where you've been. But I shouldn't need to, because I'm going to do all of the stitches. I hope you can see. I'm going to do all of the stitches for the one colour and then that's the end of that colour. So I've got him. No, I've done that wrong. Yep, I've done that wrong. Those 2 stitches need to be up 1 row. And this is the trick of cross stitch. I'm going to try and loosen that off and get that thread to release there. Okay. It's because I'm talking. I'm probably not concentrating as much as one should be. Okay, so they're gone. Now we're going to come. Let's have another look at that. Yep. No, it's still not right. Slow down, Corrine. Done that. So I'm missing a stitch up there. That's what it is. So I am right, but I need to dodge up here and catch that stitch. There. Okay, now that's better. So it's 3, 2, 1 with a space, then another 2, but 1 row over, side by side. Yep, now I got it. Then we're going to drop down a row. See, we've got a chart to work with. Imagine how hard it is when you don't have a chart and you're just going off of a photocopy of an original embroidery. It can be quite tricky. So I've done those 2. Now we're going to drop down another row. And got him. So we've come down there. So now we're going to go across 1. We're going to do 1, 2, 3, 4 little cross 1. And there's 1 stitch above that we also need to catch. So there's 1. 2. I hope I'm on camera enough. You've probably given up by now thinking this is watching paint dry, Corrine. It's all good. It's cross stitch for you. So I've got those 4. I will catch this little guy that's 1 row back above. So we're working down his tail now. This colour and this location will give me a really good indication of how big the bird's going to be too. So it's not a bad thing that we get this tail. So on the 3rd one, 1 row down, we do 3 stitches. 1, 2, nearly got this colour sorted, and 3. I love the colour, well this one anyway. Then there's 1 little stitch by itself on the next row down, and we got him. That's all of them. So let me just see what you guys can see. I'll put my glasses back on. It's not the easiest, is it? But I think you get the general gist of it. So now I can relax a little bit, and all I've got to do is finish the cross with the 2nd stroke on the alternative corner, and that creates the little X, or painting it in. So if you were doing a big piece, you could go and do your little stroke right through the whole thing of all your colours and then come back and finish them off. And it is not a bad idea. It's probably not technically right, but mapping it out like that, like I said, it helps you work out if you've jiggered up your design. Okay. How are we going for time? Let's get that in there, get my glasses back on so I can see the screen. 15 minutes. All right, I'm going to stop the video here, guys. And that will give us 15 minutes to come back and show you the bird completed and what I nutted out with the little heart and how that was worked into it. And that way this whole video series, or this whole episode, is all about getting our feature piece cross-stitched, ready to be worked into the background. And then the next video will be the background and how we use our little cross-stitch elements. So I'm just going to carry on finishing this, but you got the general gist. You know my colours, you know the technique, and yeah, our little bird will come together ever so slowly. I'm guessing there's going to be about a week just stitching this. Oh, the joys of cross stitch. Thanks, Susanna. Bloomin' cross stitch. Oh, can't believe it's back in my life, but it is fun. All right, guys, I will stop the video, put my glasses back on so I can see, and I will see you in a second, but I bet a week's gone by. Bye for now. Hello, everyone. I'm back. Okay, that's 12 hours of my life I will never get back, but I finished. I finished one of the little birds, and he was so tiny, so small. I'd really forgotten how much the size of your Aida cloth contributes to the size of your piece. If I had used a slightly bigger cloth, of course, my picture would have been bigger. So I ended up doing the one, and then I sort of interpreted the branch a little bit here and sort of created that. I put the heart in and then made it look like the heart's hanging from the branch. And then I sort of looked at it and I'm thinking, oh, what am I going to do with one bird? So I did the second bird and then just sort of interpreted the branch a little bit there as well. Added some French knots to the drop down stitches, which are just a single thread in the green, just to make it look like there's like little buds or little seed pods or something hanging there. The birds are similar, but I did try the cream as the chest to the bird, but still use the grey as the darker colour to sort of show the shadow around the bird's tummy, where that one is the soft grey and that one is the cream with that as the shadow. So I like both of them. I was concerned that this little one wouldn't show up, if you recall, but it did. It worked. And the little brown cotton that I picked out, I used as the little stems coming off of the main branch, which was in the darker brown. So in the end, it all worked out, and I just added in that green, which was 472. It's like a citrony sort of green, and then that green as the leaves in amongst the actual branches. So that's my little birds. I did do an extra heart. I thought I might as well stitch it. I had a little bit of cotton left over, so I'll use that somewhere in the piece. And I did do this edge here. It was only because I had a bit on my needle and I just sort of stitched it in. Whether I want it or not, I'm not sure. Not sure how I'm going to use it in the panel. That's in the next video. I think that's enough for today. It's been a long day chasing a tiny needle and thread around some tiny little cross stitches. So now it's a case of have a think about the actual panel that it gets built into, and whether I need to do some more embroidery to sort of build around it, but go back to the old style of slow stitch to get that bigger piece. I don't know. I sort of was sitting there thinking about it, and I was wondering if I cut this out and then build some bigger embroidery around it. So sort of, I don't know. I need to have a think about it. That's enough for one day. I thought it would take me a few days to get it done, but we just sat down on the couch and put a couple movies on, and before I knew it, the whole day was wasted on cross stitch. So I really do need to get up now, walk around and do a few chores. But at least my little birds are done, And I've got 2 little hearts, and one of which I can play with, so I might end up doing a few more. Once I work out what I'm going to use these for, I might do a couple more and sort of work them through the design as little elements, but it's a gorgeous little heart. Thanks, Susanna. All right, everyone, I will leave you all in peace, and I will see you in the next video, which will probably be a couple weeks because we've got the Roxy Journal of Stitchery in amongst it all, plus other projects, so that'll just pop up from time to time. All right, everyone, look after yourselves. Bye for now.